were discussing
Okay.
by the time you were not there. We were having internal discussion.
Okay.
Thank you, all
Right.
those who helped in discussion. Thank you. Over to you, Geshe.
Okay. So,
Do you need any help, Geshe?
okay. It's okay now. It's okay. It's fine. Then the one that the don't you correct you some the thing the land that chicks the someone take it right.
Now, Pidgey, don't you do some button now?
Just some not the change the matters. Don't you change that don't you change that 정말 the is come 공개 대발라야 돼 예den요 말이다. 제가 안에 시딩 세트를 했어요. 되게 신도 전부터 선이 철대 때부터 좀 내렸어. 남의 매 비신 교바이 동아 주미체가 됐어요. 니마다와 니도 상대지 왜지 제된 하다 난제데 라냐 미나 모두 친구네 랑게 라고때문에 도움이 줬어. 시딩 세트에 인주 투지다 정원이데 강 공말을 대발라 예된 메르스. 근데
So the verse 74 and 75 talks about the uncertainty or the unreliability of the happiness that is attained even in the higher realms of the celestial realm, even in the higher sort of like the levels of the celestial realm. So Nagarjuna states, having obtained the very great happiness of the Kamadhatu gods or the dispassionate happiness of Brahma, again, the continuous suffering of having become fuel for the Avicii's fire will have to be endured. Having attained the state of the sun or moon and illuminated the whole world by the light of one's own body, once again having entered into the desire, black darkness, one's own outstretched hand will not be seen.
먼저 대전 건도 준다다 다고도 그래다 강 공개 될 개발이나 대발에 예대 매거제 들리게다 강 공개 던저기 먼저게 마 대발라 맞게 대발 나나 있는 녀발서 근데 마 홍예 그래서 준다다 먼저 다고도 쳐보다 지금 진짜 다
So these
되나라
two verses also have like the essential.
니마다 다발에 제바이나서 당한저디 이거만 시주요서라다 니마다 와니 하래서 나중에 네 근육이 남면서 니마다 와 하는 거도 챙겨도 여서는 거만 니마다 와 하기 니마다 와 제발 나와이나야 니마지 니마다 와 거기도 막 매워잖아 근데 냠줘서 어딘데 시주요서 소요 그렇습니다.
So the essential message of this two verses, similar to the previous verse, it talks about how uncertain and impermanent is the happiness that is attained in the higher realm, that even if one is born in the higher realm of the desire realm or even higher realms of the happiness of the Brahma, at the end of the cycle of their life, they may fall down to the abyss. So the meaning are similar, but here we have a very peculiar illustration given here. So Geshe is asking, in the sort of like the ancient tradition, the sun and the moon are also considered to be the god. So Geshe is asking, do you actually know about this case, that the sun and moon are also considered to be gods?
I think yes, certain traditions, sun is considered as God. Is there anyone who would like to answer this? I guess like in Hinduism, you have a god of sun, right? What's his name? Is it, can't remember his name now. So we have gods associated with
Surya.
sun. Yeah. And then we have basically a lot of different indigenous religions, and they have worshipped the sun as a god because it's a source of light and life for everyone.
And 코라니 가송슬라 nga chegi chugyu kashe jinang lo nga chegi la dang dawa dinga chegi nima dan dawa dinga zui la ngonjin chiba yo ma se ani nga chegi tanda hindu chugyu na yin bai na nima dinga zui nimen ha la che nga chegi dende jing ngonji chi nga zu chui chi yo res 아니 대민기 nga cheki zambulin yongza la nga zu dume ki jizo mangbu ji nang lo la ta xia de nima xeba de nga cheki he da zhe jing tian jing zang 아니 하기 하기 당 오질 다치 nga zu denje gi nga zu lo sui ji yo ba ji nga cheki peje nga cheki dume ki jizo mangbu ji na yo ba ji kon cheki denje ji yores la chi denje shine ji kya so
다 사는 거마 가서나 지단계 라스르드네 군조스는 즉그 소설라마 같은 장템이로 보라 딱 앉아 단 나가 뭐이나 데 니마세데 그세 매와이나 느껴가 가서 너무 나죠 아빠도 챈다 다와든데 매와나 되게 네 그때 가서 가게 마동에 근데 된적이 안했었을 디지털 제인 거다 너무 나자는 배 통발 가래나 가를 내가 제도 막 가르스 저거 제도 말 그게 믿으잖아 니마 시한테 타팅팅 저도 되는 소소 가래나 내가 가르 제도 되네 다 되게 아니 커팅 첨부터 되잖아 다 하래서 근데도 섬도 좀 있게 진짜 먼저 배잖아요 특별 하지에서는 니마 다 왔어요 단단 과목에 대해 싹디 까지리 보통 당시 자세는 인스레팅
So, so Geshe said that most of these indigenous population that worship sun definitely comes through the idea that normally when we think about the concept of a god or a concept of a creator, we tend to incline more towards the idea of someone that provides us with safety, provides us with certain ability to sustain. And because the sun is able to do these things, that it provides the light that enables us to see the world around us. It enables the heat, provides the heat, which enables us to sort of like produce our sustenance. That might be the reason why the sun or the moon might be considered as a god. Even in our text, it is said that the sort of like the moon it is said that one may manifest as the realm or the realm of the god as the moon and the sun. And it might also come from the influence of the ancient astrology.
하여튼에 전주 정어라다 전주 전주 대한데 그게 다소속에 담아들어 소소다 직불되고 내내 내단으로 차이 버렸을 밤에 직불되고 상관하다 제가 너무 규제 손남지 남좀 마음에 나와 잡신데 직도님아 다바 미집에서 미나타야 나도 족체로스 시딩 스티르
So the verse 76, it talks more about the understanding to consider one's solitary position. That at the end, it seems that in every cases, it is one by themselves that they are to stand alone and cycle in the samsara. So Nagarjuna states, since you will have to suffer thus, take up the bright lamp of the threefold virtue. You alone will have to enter the endless darkness, which is not destroyed by sun or moon.
어떤에 마셔도 지단게 마자이디 코바님이다 가나 코바님이 제담 시에다 코바님이 제 어떤에 마셔도 지라서서 마셔도 되나 당한데 내 손숨데 정말로 시험 지단 완전 내 손숨데 냐와이다 전도서 저러 당한도 시험거든요 지단게 전도 당한도 통되고 당한도 전도 셈제전 좋잖아 통되고라다 무슨 충제 전도 남치도 냐와이다 세대니 여러 생각도 있습니다. 그래도 냐와이다서 시험 때문에 지단게 냐와세데 취주 상만에 시에시거든 냐와세데 저러 시에시고 이나다 정도 냐와세데 여러 생각도 되겠습니다. 전도 당한도 통되고 그러다.
So all of these the above verse mostly generalizes the understanding of the faults of samsara and the sort of like the the characteristic of samsara that makes it undesirable. And therefore, we see that in the samsara, usually we have all these different beings, these sentient beings, in which, other than humans, we usually can observe and see the beast or the animal realm. But then there are also realms such as the realm of the hungry ghost and the realm of the hell. So Geshe is asking, do you think that there is something such as the hell realm, or whether it exists? And so if it exists, how should it be?
I didn't understand the question. You at the last part. You said if it exists, how should it?
Geshe tero nyawa yoso na kandeji yores na chi.
아마 냐와서는 열에서 이제 쉐워다 먼저 슈르 망면 냐와 쉐워서 냐와서도 열에 튕기돼 다가 쉐었으면 됐어요.
So the question is not about how it's Geshe asks. Usually in many different tradition or many different religious tradition, we talk about the existence of a realm called the hell realm. So Geshe asks, do you think that is it the hell realm? Does it actually exist, or is it just a figment of imagination, or something that is just being said in the text?
Geshe, I would say for that, even if, I mean, we don't know if it exists, so even we can take it on faith on the one hand, but on the other hand, if from our practical everyday experience, each time that we are in, the desire realm for ourselves, wanting because of attachment, that can be considered to be a hungry ghost realm.
Geshe Korangi tanda Wanashri la Korangi Karsons la nga tsuki chitane nga tsuki tati nezu de nga tsuki iche che troya chi rete mato ne nga tsuki namjun chi nga tsuki chi kwa nan le tu nga tsuki decha ki wangi nga tsuki chi penetrash na nga tsuki chingobe ki chingobe chi kutuk che de nga tsuki zoya meba chita deba chi zoya meba didi rangi gyabla nga zo gyude di peche nga zo ida la di dende ji men ro la chi korangi di songs.
나 진짜 먼저 잠자나 미팅데 연나 이다래서 라서로 열답니. 심지어 지당 다 이다로 그래서 지당 답받듯이 아니 지당 먼저게 이다 동화시에도 이다서 때부터 거는 동화 비시고세. 에나야데 답사야 돈을 또 거기나 추도도 담된다고 하는 미국 하고 시고서 저거 좀 보시고서 배 산이 시고도 나 삼마도 되고 근데 내다도 여러 근데 시고. 진짜 진에다 나게 텍스랑 시샤 잡아야나다 메나야 이다 제고 말았어 미스야 텐텐도 제고라 예소데 하다 미스 텐도 레 개백에 되고 있어 하다 미스와나 레 개와사와나 개백 되고들라네 현재 레 개와사와나 개백 되고들라 라 밀라마이 지그레서 레 메개와사와나 되게 되고들라 아니 냐와 이다 텐도스 어딘데 제도들나 담미 저거도 세르면 원소랑 레 가서드나 배자 시샤셔와이나 다디 미토 또 엄청 보이나 다 이다 저것도 이다 치당도 좀 양 이다랑 레슨 랍티고
So Geshe said that it is a fact that the hungry ghosts are being which has a great attachment and desires. They desire for a lot of things, and then when they come to a point where they're in front of a food or water, it is such that they cannot consume it because they have such a thin neck. So usually we have this sort of like in our Tibetan language, like we have this kind of saying where we tend to give an example of the hungry ghost to people who are always greedy, and those who are very misers, those who do not give away, who do not do the practice of generosity. We call them people who are like hungry ghosts. But according to the text itself, it is said that everyone will manifest in a realm according to their accumulation of virtuous or non-virtuous action. So the celestial or the god realm, the demigod realm, and the human realm are considered to be the higher realm. So therefore, for these to to manifest one's rebirth in these planes, one should accumulate great amount of virtues, sort of impressions, and do a lot of virtuous deed. Whereas the lower realm, which is the realm of the beast or the realm of the animal, the realm of the hungry ghost, and the realm of the hell, one must accumulate a great deal of non-virtuous action. So therefore, if one has been reborn as a human, it means that they have achieved or they have accumulated a great deal of virtuous merits. So therefore, according to the law of causality, it is not possible. But we may say that this person is like a hungry ghost, but in actuality is not the hungry ghost.
근데 이제 다 지난 완전 냐와도 시행도는 다 지, 음악에 저저다 안에 숨었다 냐와시네 도저히 갑자기 막 저와나 기도미다 가세서 질라 냐와 열에서 시에도 열었다데 그때야 나가 먹에 돼 같이 봐 시자 인게 다다다 거 저와나 지 자와이나다 아리도 저 자가 어디 따다 사콜라데 데나 데 갑자기 아리도 하체고스 아리다 간저이다 시었다 되는 미사마 예멜 찾아 찾아오라 다디스데 당가 시에도 담지게 다딘데게 토마토 이제 사자랑 집어 많이 받지 다 소소게 다 레다 딘데 왕게 토마토 찾아와 있나 레다 딘데 소소게 네테로 저다 어 레다 디지다 뭐 딘데 왕게다 킬로미터나 마 샤와 있나 딘데도 찾고 사자랑 찾나 다다 되고 저는 딘데 소요
So if you talk about the hell realm, according to the Abhidharmakosha, it is said that the hell actually exists like a certain distance, certain kilometers under the Bodh Gaya. So under the Bodh Gaya, a few kilometers under the Bodh Gaya is actually the hell realm. But then it seems that it is something that has been influenced by the ancient astrology, because if we actually try to trade that particular thing and then see what comes under India in the globe, it seems that the country that comes directly and which comes under the sort of like the 3D model of the globe, it seems that the hell should be somewhere in America. But then in this day and time, we see that America, in the especially when we are in this sort of like capitalistic society that we are living, it seems that America has been idealized to be the land of the dream, where dreams come true. So it seems that it's something that many worship to be the land of the dreams. So it is very counterintuitive to the understanding of Abhidharmakosha. So Geshe said that this concept of Abhidharmakosha can be inferred into a different analogy, where one might think about the kilometers of non-virtuous deed that they have done. And when they have reached certain kilometer of the non-virtuous deed, that they will go to the hell realm instead of the actual sort of like geographical understanding of it.
됐으나 당한 저기 지단게 냐와도 막 보시는데 다 찍잖아 삼로 당당자 용조 사자도 된데 사자 데리에서 믹스하면 이다스는 데리에서 매나야 다 심지직 요거 강치라 되게 삼로 당다 삼로 당다 용한 용당다 강한 용당 저라 된데 된데 이제 적다 어때선다 안에다 이나 전도된 저 강하던 것도 통대 버려다 가자 요지 전냐와도 이다스에 되나 다 디레디스 먼저 믹마도 삼제 가서 심제 가장 가서 통고 맞다 믹 내가 저 배차잖아 먼저 속을 나고라나 배 심제 장도 열수다 무슨 무슨들 어때네 이다나 같이 슛 사고되는 나 자, 그냥 앉아 나가 주는 배도거라 밑에 심제 심바도 내가 저 대마도 되네 슛 사고되는 나라 아니 무슨 열수 같이 착과 쉬어되는 나라야 심제 내용도 나 같이 차되는 나라 우르서 주는 매와 나라 밑에 심제 무슨들이라고 오다 나나 무슨 로도 어떤 저게 다 삼로 나라 간대요 되게 텔라스 되게 배삼들아 어디서 배 사오 슛 사오되는 나라야 배 보드는 내도 어떤 저게 영화 가자요 하고 어디데 냐와다 이다서 대동아 지중도 안에 봐 삼다나 예스버스 사자 미리테리스 믹사 때문에
So therefore, the concept of hell as a exact place that exists where is something that might not be something that is exact definition, might not be the exact definition of hell, as well as the concept of the hungry ghost. There may not be an exact creature. But now when we think about the hell or the hungry ghost, we might think about it in the degree of suffering that a particular creature goes through. So usually when we even consider the idea of observing animals, there are such small microbes that we are unable to see with our naked eyes. And we see that there are certain animals that, and there are countless and countless of them residing, sustaining, living even in our body, but we're not able to see them. So many of these animals, as we see, some of these animals live in such an environment, such an harsh environment. Like there are certain microbes that live in very hot water that is so hot that we might not even able to touch it. And then there are certain type of microbes that live in very cold weather, in ice. And then there are certain microbes that live in the creaks and cracks of rocks where it is almost impossible for the air to enter. So when we think about all of this, there is this understanding that the concept of hell and hungry ghosts, those concepts, instead of being a particular place, an exact geographical place, or somewhere beyond our earth where it might be no particular place, or hungry ghosts being no particular creature, but those things being explained or understood on the basis of the degree of suffering that a particular animal or particular sentient being goes through.
그래서 안에 가지고 돼 뭐바저 나는 시대 뭐지 안에 단다 따다 중국마다 대가 저쪽 대 가서 레베인이 그래서 반도라 호랑이 답에 나가면 롱바데 가서라 시주 가리티 시샤 돈에 시 뭐다 몇개 가다 예면 새 접든데 나요 말아 대 시샤 돈에는 손게 돼 진에 안에 지단 거랑 나가면 돼 가지리 버터들 디도와 디조 조선데다 헬센데서 니마 요즘에 와서 안에 잡는 ölner tila ani nimata tawa qora cha sa badanya nimata ölner te tawala so sa ko la te qora cha sa qora shetu ni do te ngamanar tinde ge da te zamne ji la cha ne da nima qora cha shezu jora te shisha to na ma tas te sung sha ta so na so te tinde shisha to na sung se.
So therefore, the concept of hell or the hungry ghost that is stated by Vasubandhu in his Abhidharmakosha may not be particularly correct when we try to fact check it in these days and times, because many of the things that were stated by Vasubandhu is strongly influenced by the society in which he was residing, as well as the sort of like this astronomy and the astrology that existed at that time. Even in the sort of like earlier astronomy, we see that there are great discrepancies between the concept, whereas we have the concept of the solar system being heliocentric by Copernicus, and then there is the concept of geocentric solar system by the Plato. So we see that even in these concepts, we see that one talks about the Earth being at the center, whereas the other talks about the sun being at the center. So because of these sort of like ideologies and concept that has evolved, we see that many different concepts also evolve from that time. So therefore, even our idea of hell, which may have been based on Vasubandhu's concept, it also evolves with time, with more understanding of the facts.
단단데 냐와다 이다세 사자사이다 디엔다 저는 수가 따다면 지다 냐와 이다세 된데 유튜브 가서는 그 동화 림베시라다 메손숨다 덴도세 동화 지중다 네 대화 지중도는 시험다 그래서 냐와 이다세 동화마 쇼된 냐와 진에 이 차다이다 네 덴도스 어떤에 하다 메서는 디 대화체 미네 하면 다세 디 대화체 대화다 동화 용단저로 근데 그 동화 지중다 대화 마뉴얼 릭 툭툭친 되세요. 다들 사자 데이터에서 미사데 좀 말데. 데 코란 동화 지중 림바데 된대 요트.
So Geshe said that he definitely slightly disagrees with the idea that the hell should be a particular place that one can go and find. But the very idea of the existence of hell and the existence of hungry ghosts is something that is in fact a fact. So therefore there is nothing wrong with that concept, but the concept that these should be a particular place that one can go and find is something that Geshe slightly disagrees with Vasubandhu. Because according to Geshe, he said that the concept of hungry ghosts, or the concept of the lower realm and the concept of the higher realm, only differentiates on the degree of happiness and the degree of suffering that one experiences. Whereas the lower realm experience a great deal of suffering, and the higher realm have less suffering and more happiness. So it's only based on that particular experience of happiness and the suffering that differentiates between the realm, instead of a particular place.
이제 다들 막 그러시느라 든든든든들 다다 든든든든들다 단녀와 동화 시오다 단녀와 동화랑 그래서 막 도단시던 제 선제 녀와 저저는 양수听到了都 사와당스 최종 목표 남에 라서베 녀와 남서 따도 동화 쪽으로 근데 아니 시팅특들이 시대양다 녀와를 내가 동화들을 들을 요르세레스다 녀와 선녀다스听到是뭐 시오도 정말 장하잖아 혹시
So the 77th verse talks about the suffering of hell, to consider the suffering experienced in the fire realm, to consider the suffering in the hells. So Nagarjuna states, living beings who commit offenses will always suffer in the hells. The Samjiva, the Kala Sutra, the Pratapana, the Sanghata, the Rurava, the Avicii, etc. So even in the text, we talked about these different realms in the hell, the realm of the hell of the heat, and as well as the sort of like the Vajra hell. So we talk about different realms of the hell.
근데 냐와 동화 뭐 현에 양까지 다든데 냐와도 동화 뭐 셔도 된다 대신에 오니도 삼단 찾아줘. 엄마 배도 좀 셔도 다 저와지도 그럼 아 저대로 봐. 어to 다 보면도 신나고 가도 냐와다 시다도 동화 쇼시 신나고 가도 있어. 근데 라자 제고 신나랑 담바 되는데 여하나 소소 디라파가 삼렸다 되는데 또 알는데 여시버리스. 가서는 코바나 가리나 여시버라. 어딘데 맞아. 야 신나 우리도 삼자 일에 잘하죠. 야와 눈에 현 야와 동안 마시도 다까지 신나 제스요라. 또 보면 신나 오바도 있어요. 어딘데 그래도 요르다고.
So when we discuss about these different realms of hell and all those different sort of levels of suffering that one suffers in hell, one might have this thought, like they may think that the concept of hell is used as like a sort of like a means to terrorize the people, but this isn't the case. Like very famous sort of like an illustration of this is that it is said so that once in Tibet there was a certain monk, and then he was asked, "Where are you going?" And he said that, "Oh, I'm going to frighten the old people by telling them about the sufferings of the hell." So this is what he was going for. But the case is that it's not about terrorizing, it's about reminding that it exists in that way.
근데 제대로다. 어딘 저거로래다听나세 좀더听나세 이제 동화시 쇼는. 전주 그게 뒤지세지 리시네. 처마 신문이도 처마 나서 캐지 솔레 테데 대신 신 따리미세 손을 남지 시스. 어딘데 다 되게 양들이 데리다 되게 서무제 되네 도지다 소화되는 연습을 하다 말해서 랍도 말하는데 어딘데 연습을 하다 소소 미소소 소화 용조 담는 어떤 일 남는다 맨날 띵도 니남 땅도 삼삼나 뱉어 저는 저 쇼던데 뱉어거나 메인데 매직의 쇼트에서 보다 양 삼삼만 하나 사도서 뒤 연구를 하다 되네 신게 되네 연습을 하다 되네 동화 연습을 하다.
So the 78th verse states, "There some are pressed like sesame. Similarly, others are grounded into fine powders. Some are cut by saws. Likewise, others are split by the very sharp blades of terrible axes. So here we see that there are many different sort of like suffering that is experienced in the hell realm. So therefore, what Geshe said is that we cannot deny the fact that some people might have certain sort of like suffering, psychological suffering, through which they are actually, or physical suffering, by which they are actually experiencing all of these things. Similarly, we have like these nightmares. And in those nightmares, we experience terrible, terrible things in our dreams. So likewise, there may be certain experience that people go through in their life that seem very much like being cut by saws or split open by very sharp blades of terrible axes.
이제 다 니와데 데도로를 맞는 랍차와데 냐와레나 니와 먹고 쉬어도 되잖아. 냐와데 저녁에 저녁에서 먹고 쉬어도 이래 소소소다 맨날 다 동화도 쉬어보라. 나 단다데 전주 동구들에도 대시 신다 추주 쇼바이 그거 봐봐 특별 투버스 까지 짜디 세진 매봐봐 세만년의 군도 주바니스 주바지스.
So the 79th verse, these verses are similar. It talks about the different level of suffering in different realms of hell. So Nagarjuna states, while a burning stream of thick, molten bronze is poured into others, some are completely transfixed by heated, barbed iron sphere. So even in the text, we talked about different realms in hell. There's the hot hell, and then there's the cold hell. So we talk about different level of hell and different types of suffering in those levels.
Yes, and 다 제주도 개직 짜지 시간이 템베치스 좀 빼지 라벤 넘도 젠스 왕매신다 제주 넘버다 스문메세 템베 카나 톱스 어떤데다 지단기 니코베 냐바세 때 디동하도 시고다 먼저다 디드네 마운트 냐바 동하드네 시고다.
So the 80th verse also talks about the suffering in one of the realms of the hell, in which Nagarjuna states, some with hands outstretched towards the sky are overpowered by fierce dogs with iron fangs, while others, powerless, are torn asunder by ravens with terrible claws and sharp iron beaks.
이제 제주도 운이 찍고라 싶으니 니제베 동스들도 그지 심부부에 나서다 장자 샤당 장마 나부 티다라스 렌덴 미센 산네 시지베스 세바지시 데도 명만데스 어디에 동안요 semdana 게시를 소바티데 요그스다.
So this is similar to the 80th verse, talks about the suffering. So some used as food writhe and utter lamentations when touched by various worms and beetles, flesh flies, and tens of thousands of black bees, which cause large, terrible wounds.
근데 이제 내가 랍스 타워스 디시어도 제주 테니디 그지 담마트베 소소지 김미체베 레디칸 그지 잘레체베 상제도 지구초지 중지 베드세스 되게 그냥 내가 대된 심받지 그냥 랍스 타워스 되게 좀 아쉬웠다.
So this talks about a different level of hell. It states, again, some with mouths agape are constantly charred in heap of burning embers, while some, thrust head down, are cooked like a mass of rice in great cauldrons made of iron.
되지. 제주 접시들에다 제주 제숨들들이 쫙받게 왔다 들으시 되고 대제 우주가 왔담진데 되게 봐도 쇼담 야와 동아신 돈에 남동도 미직하냐 도제란 신노 제주 접시들에 넘버리시 야와 대베 토다 통과다 전달라다 수수지는 직받제바 준데 미세베스 내면 냥선는 매치세스.
So the 83rd and the 84th verse talks mostly about the arising of fear. So it states, having listened to the measureless suffering of hell, sinners whose nature is adamant are not shattered into 1,000 pieces, yet only the time between the beginning and end of a breath separates them from hell. A fear will arise through making image or seeing pictures of hell, reading, remembering, or hearing about hell. So if one should experience the terrible consequences, then what need to say anything?
근데 어제 대동아 뭐뭐 셔셔다. 다 되게 가서는 먼저 용대 동아 줘라. 남자 중에 먼저 매대나 용대 동아 틀을 하고 동아 된다 여러다. 나 먼저 좀 대대서 가서 동아 셔봐 차사자. 동아 셔봐 쳐도네. 동아 직소소 용대 제고 셔네 되고 말스. 뭐 동아서 셔버려. 동아를 셔. 근데 셔베 제라네 동아서데 니 타로 쳐버라. 타야게 아니 동아 주도에 민도 동아데 템바시 남자 셔버라. 제가서 다 tampo 동아 셔봐 차. 소데네 동아 셔도 되나 소도 용대 베게. 아니 레저게 동아 담 셔나 되고 심적으로 동아 셔. 대대 되네 지금 동아 신바양 뭐 셔버려. 또 잠깐 셔버려. tampo 동아 셔버라. 소데네 아니 동아 가다 요 삼보 셔 개좀 버렸어. 동아 셔봐 차. 선데 템바 담보나.
So therefore, with all these images and all these statements about the suffering of the hell, one should understand all these suffering. Just like Buddha he said, know the suffering. So it is important to first to understand that there is suffering and that what is those suffering, to be able to picture or image to arise that kind of like fear towards the suffering. So therefore, Buddha stated, understand or know the suffering.
다다 동아를 타라발라 담보 타사도 씌워라. 근데 동아 씌워봤자 하스다. 아니 동아 씌워야나 다 근데 씌워서 나 동아가 다 나서 봐. 동아게 제가 내지 동아를 써봤다. 내선 성도 동아를 써봤다. 다 커원을 동아 가자 이거 또참 아파 씌워선. 또 대상화 씌워는 다 딜레 안에 타야겠다. 탑람 되면도 동아 때는 씌워 줘도 동아도 구우며 하고도 되는 다 동아 때는 먹고 바래서는 깨잡다는 동아 나도 말아. 미시바지 요나 디파티로서나 대여머라. 데미드는 다 소소문에 다 동아데 시베 제라 내 가르쳐 보선 다 메와서라. 메와서라 담보 메와서야 돼 시어라. 어디 시에다 메와서나 담람 가르쳐 보선. 담람서는 동아서도 메와서야 돼 민도. 되게 동아서도 교도 가르쳐서 뭐 제제는 아니 군종서도 뭐 니발레 메모라 템바시나. 안에 다 군종서도 동아 용해도 교대 군종서도 레샤서는 아니 군종서도 무지션. 아니 신의 군종도 메와서야 줘라. 근데 네 담람도 쳐.
So to know the suffering is to understand, from what one should liberate oneself from. Because when one experiences suffering, it is something, if one does not know the cause of the suffering, one is unable to liberate themselves from the suffering. And it is something that cannot be even given to others by asking them to take it. So one should first know the suffering, know their suffering, and see whether it's this particular suffering something that they can or cannot overcome in that particular time, and to see how they can overcome these suffering that they're experiencing. And when one contemplates on the understanding of suffering, one realizes the concept of the origin of the suffering. Then one comes to the state of realizing that there is a cause or the origin of the suffering.
언제서는 당한 저 가디 동아 시에는 동아도 나서 어제 배때 시에는 동아 som선이 동아라 써봤다. 뭐 시에는 동아데 교대는 군종이 하고도 다 오늘 동아서 교세 군종 대왕게 아니 그것도 동아용 대샤. 마야 다랑 찍고 차례. 그래서 나디 메봤어요. 아니 내가 남은 근데 내가 때는 아니 답답도 그랬어. 되게 내가 좀 되다 담보거나 취소해 좀 되다 저 담보 소에 되게 담바식 남자송라. 저도 뭔가도 담바식 돌아 거야 여러 등 장사줘라. 대신에 일단 한 저기 동아도 좀뭐 시험에는 소 년전 냠래 차와나 안에 소소 통다에 심지어 뭐 쇼들 동아냥 대쇼. 다 통마도에 통마도에다. 냐와다 이다 전저에 동아들의 요사래 삼상게 어떤 절은 맥고요거든요. 소소 년전 냠래 차와나냐. 디 년제들이야. 자체 사와 어디네 채워요.
So by contemplating on the suffering, one's own suffering, one can understand that there is the cause of suffering, the origin of suffering. And by understanding of the origin of suffering, one can think about how to liberate oneself from the suffering, in which they start contemplating on the path. So therefore, when Buddha first gave the teaching of the Four Noble Truths, Buddha first taught the concept of suffering and the concept of suffering, and stated that understand the suffering. And this is done so that one can actually contemplate that about their own suffering, and by which they could understand that the very cause of all these suffering is the origin of all suffering. And by this, the virtue of understanding this, one can think about this, for example, by the virtue of understanding the suffering of the lower realm, one can also contemplate on the suffering and understand that there is a cause of the suffering. And the very cause because of which all these sentient beings of the lower realm are suffering is the same cause why I am also suffering in this very moment. And thus, to liberate oneself from the suffering. And then, on the other hand, one can use that particular understanding, the same understanding, to think that there are this countless many beings, animals that are suffering, which I can observe in front of my eyes. Just imagine how many countless beings are suffering in this very moment. And by the virtue of this mind, generating this mind, one can actually practice compassion in a more vast and profound manner.
근데 이제 안에 디마르 디샤 안에 저거네요. 저거 가셔야
So this will be today for today for the session. So Geshe asks if anyone has question, please ask away.
May I ask something, Geshe?
Sure.
Yeah. So just to understand more on the different realms, when you ask the question, do they really exist? So, so I understood that there is a cause, but I also trying to understand it is the mental state. These realms are actually the mental states, right? Because in one situation, two people put in the same situation, one can be happy, other can suffer. So this way, it is a mental state, right? The different realms.
Geshe Quran ki tuwa kharre shalana. Tangi nga tsuki nyawa da ida sheba di nga tsuki ji saja ji nga tu misuka ne tse je nge yo ba ji ma yin ba che. Semje Quran su su ki nga zu donga nyong we tse shi da ji da. Da nga tsuki donga gi ne tse da ji del da ji nga tsuki ji nyawa da tu ro la ji nga tsuki che su ji nga zu yung sigi des nan sunga di na la. Quran ki tuwa kharre shalana. Nga tsuki dente ina da nyawa sheba tang nga tsuki ida sheba tang da tuwa semje tamjin nga tsu sha su na nga tsu dente ki ten di nga tsuki ji ten Quran rang nga tsuki ji sashi da ji ma yin ba che. Rwa semje khora rangi nga tsuki nyongso la tuku yo bachi nga tsu song sos. An tente ina nga tsuki nyawa la sopa ta tutro la ida la sopa tenzo nga tsuki chi semje khora rangi nyongso la tupe nga tsu tunga ki tseshi la shisha cheche nga tsuki shagyu chi rebe, shagyu rebas la chita khorangi tente chi song so. Ta pena chasha na nga tsuki kansa ni la nga tsuki nedang chikpa chi ina chi la tungye yo bachi ta chi la degi ki nga tsu tsua yo ba yung sikres. An dende ji pe chön jil sha che nga tsuki nyawa ta ida la di nga tsuki dende jil pa sha chogu re bes la chi.
다 디 지단게 삼력을 임바토네 시에나 디고르다 땡도 다 만저게 배잖아 삼로데 안에 바드데 레다 사파도 렌데데 되버시고 레지 디조라 데우데 레지 데우션도 렌데게 debu shedu dene leji debu dela ani yaktuk do jana ane duga do sum le ngamba chabaina debu ngamba sum yum kris le yabo chabaina debu yabo shi sum yum kris le dela ani debu ngamba dela ya ani de ngamba le de ngamba ngashot odinde sum sawaina de wang debu la ani sum yum kris le ngamba sawana tendo chigres dile ngamba sawana itar chigres dile ngamba sawana nyawar chigres odine ji dal ya ko sawana miluto dile asana ha ane me lamaye ende laso dindege si le debutonne shene debus 다이나 저 상마 ende 코와 나나 시샤 쇼 코가 나네 도 시샤 쇼 다디 레세지 시에 된가 저지 된게 레시에도 된데 연락 중에 거도 시에도 된 레시에도 된데 레들이야 이 가서래 뭐 쉬어야 좀뭐 쉬어다 내고는 좀 밤에랑 뭐 쉬어지 근데 내 쉬어도 되네 지단게 편제를 내세죠 편제 내서는 레드산에 제와든지 집행도 그랬어요 뭐 딘데게 레그리 몇 방도 내시고
So, so Geshe said that definitely it could be understood as a state of mind. But then it should also be understood that when we talk about these different sentient beings, different realms, they should be very much dependent on the causality and the power of the different causalities. So even when we talk about, so we can see it like this. We can talk about virtuous action and non-virtuous action, and then we can divide them into three groups. One being sort of like a slight virtuous action and slight non-virtuous action. The second being a more powerful virtuous action and more powerful non-virtuous action. And finally, a very powerful virtuous action and very powerful non-virtuous action. So those who have somewhat accumulated a slight virtuous action, they might be born as a human realm, in the human realm. Similarly, those who have accumulated a slight non-virtuous action, they might be born in the animal realm. Then those who have accumulated even more virtuous action, merit, they are being manifested as in the demigod realm. And then those who have like a more powerful sort of like non-virtuous action, they are born as a hungry ghost. And then similarly, those who have committed a great sin or great non-virtuous action, they are born in the hell realm. And in counter, those who have accumulated great merit, they are born in the God realm. So in difference to the degree of the virtuous actions that they have, merits that they have accumulated, they're born in this realm. And then it should be understood that when we talk about these realms, every one of these realms are realms that exist in the boundary of the samsara. And when we talk, even if we try to elaborate on this particular level of different levels of actions and sort of like actions, deeds and impressions, we have the 12 link dependent origination, where we talk about different actions, different level of action, in which we have the sort of like the karma or the deed, which manifests into our next lifetime. So these are the action which actually sort of like administers or which actually sort of manifests us into the realm that we are born in.
먼저 답변은 간저게 낭바게 되죠라 가서나 사콜로지스 로렉다도 내셔도 되냐게 다데 뭐 셔도 되네 고주 문주 고주 신고서시오 다 레진 넘버 멤버 전서 아니 신고를 사실은 진짜 안에 델라파에 신고 동경이야 신도 고 제바스 참마 참마들라 무슨 참마다 제바 참마서 어디에 셔도 되네 디고라는 전서 또에 학 공개 보나 삼로지야 삼로 저러 당도 미통 맞어 자신의 신도 고조 제외가 아니 예체 롱 제바스 어디에 하거나 전서 드리드리 레티 사바나 아니 레티 제바 드리드리 사래 저거 드리드리 녀오스 배차잖아 가도네 단내데 밀리토브나 밀리토에 레티 가져 사레스 가져 사세디 레티 저저 드리드리 사자 그네지 사레스 다티 신고를 썼다 신도 고조세 그냥 드리드리 시에도요스 고조 문조 신고스
So when we talk about Buddhist psychology or Lorik, we discussed the idea of like classification of phenomena in three groups. The first one being apparent phenomena, the second one being slightly hidden phenomena, and then the third one being very hidden phenomena. So the intricate network of the causality and the sort of like the ability to infer, the inferential cognition that can perceive the intricate network of causality and say that, oh, so for example, Geshe said that in this lifetime, I have manifested a life of human. And this was done because of my action in this lifetime or that lifetime. Those kind of inferential cognition comes when one is able to observe these very hidden phenomena. So only with those ability one can actually see which was the action that manifested one as this particular life form. So therefore, those kind of understanding of the causality, according to the Buddhist psychology, we categorize them as very hidden phenomena.
네,
That's
니들
what Geshe
대백군, 니들 대백군은 다 컨트롤 그릇이 저한테 장마 안에 소소소게 데드버드 하고 있어요.
Alibadidira.
버드 하고 있어.
So Geshe is asking everyone, he's asking, does everyone know your day of birth?
Yes, right like this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, 장마하고다. 그래서
Everyone knows it.
로
Geshe is
카레 말
asking,
로 카레나 로 잡을라 다와라면 얘도 로 다와 카레나 제리 잡을라 하시면 됐어. 다와 준 하잖아.
so Geshe is asking, can you just tell us which month you were born in?
July.
줄라이.
Yeah.
September.
September. Okay. 요새 된 장마 아니면 랍 조절해다. 그래서 저는 됐죠.
So Geshe is saying that you're all very confident in your answer. So Geshe says, what is your sort of like evidence that you were born in that month by your own virtue?
Parents.
Nang pama.
맞아. 다마시다. 어쨌든 먼저게 신고서 제해줘라. 이제 롱을 때내셔 그래서. 뒤더더 저. 가서 먼저 파망을 나와도 이제 세웠다. 이 샤샤도 파망을 보고 좀 마셔 말했어. 때 대한 소송 먼저 거기만 가라 하고. 제에서 가자 와서 사자도 명가 되게 제에서는 다 주로 얘기 때문에 어떤 거 명가 되게 제에서 근데 상황 너무 가서 또 있는 대가서 명가 되는 요마 transfer 제저라 근데 하고 뭐 할게 뭐지다. 사카레 게 맞이 하고 뭐 다 치즈는 치즈 다 되게 제 명가 되는 게 certificate tag도 돼. 되게 다 걸로도 안 가대 제셔 근데 명가 되어 쓰는 쉬고다. 쉬에도 가서는 딜라 예제선 쉬고. 계속서 하고 말ਦੇ.
So Geshe said, therefore, most of these very hidden phenomena are only made apparent on the reliance to the doctrine or the teachings. So even our birth, like Geshe said that for him, he was born in a very rural village. He didn't have like birth certificate or medical doctors who could ascertain that. But still, he has that confidence in which day he was born. Similarly, many of those who are born in cities and they have like these papers that they call birth certificates, in which they would say, I was born in this day, in this state. They need to rely on this paper, on the narration of someone else. They need to believe on it to ascertain that they were born in that particular date. So this is the very nature of the very hidden phenomena. To make those very hidden phenomena apparent phenomena, one should rely on doctrine or transmission or teachings.
Thank you, Geshe. Very helpful. Nikila had some question, I think. Yeah, I think it was when Geshe, when you were talking about the different kinds of virtuous and non-virtuous actions, and then earlier we talked about the different realms of hell. I mean, I think it's bad enough to just have one hell, but there were 6 realms of hell, like Samjiva, Kalasutra, etc. Are these realms kind of, do they correspond in some kind of abstract way to the type of non-virtuous actions that basically caused you to go into a certain type of realm of hell?
La so Geshe la Korangi to Karishna ta Dirisha Tangi Geshe la Ginga Tsiki da Nyawa Nanga to come Dramanda ta come Nyakam Mendrakol Shetunga Tsiki Sanye Changye la so Nyetsa la so pa Nyeko Dendeginga Tsiki Nyawa ki da come Mandra Mangbu Yobati当然这个等到顶个的给是来给等到啊这个draw的出来呢啊就点draw当年 draw 了拍给个的啊这个去来给啊这个人把忙着去去来上坡种上去去那米绿头发去带来那个去呢他们一起带来那个去呢他给我开始来年把种上去呢to draw带来年把去呢啊这个啊一大带来年把去呢鸟完了去等这个扩大的拍了加速呢nga cheki nya kham re nga cheki chi nyoya man traman ta chi yo ba chi ta khorang gi sung ba ting nga cheki kha sung san ta ta nga so ta chi de sung so khorang gi nga cheki nya wa chi yo ba khora ran tu nga chen ba re shas ta del nya wa mang bu she so nya wa thu she so nga so nya wa gi kham thu du she ba ting nga cheki chanye chanye la so ba den so nga cheki khansa gi digbe le kha jo sa we wang gi den re gi kham re la ke ba chi re bes ya men na 디디 nga chöki 강사기 ki dikbe ki cheshi tuan bachedo nga chöki nyakam rere nga chöki chi lo ki pa shawa che chido nga chöki pa chanang zam chi re bes ya nga chö dinde chi nga chöki chi nga chöki chanang zam chi shaya chido dikba digam sana kam dinde chi rogur tala chi dikba digi chö chi kam dinde chi yorda chi nga chö susula chi dinde chanang chi le to zam ki chido shekyo re bes la chi yisong
tanda di ta nyabaya ka rinpa mambu shedo. She di ta nyaba je le se la le khurang la rinpa mambu yos. Le chap che se na dunga ma. Nyawa narmi se jan shewa ta. Te ina pe dunga shewa yo ta. Tesa na ta dindu kara shewa sa na nyaba la je khurang le di la ya ina rinpa mambu. Le chap che chung. Te chap che chung la ten jaga ina dunga ma nyum. Nyabaya ka rinpa mambu ten ya ina dunga che chung la ten pa she shewa. Dunga ma nyum. Ta nga zoi milu towa chikpa ina ya ngi 소소게 레왕게 미카잖아 this 동안요 대바마스 어디나 지어라 냐와 되나이나 냐와 제와 이베 찍고 간절라 대 나노라야 삽치 중앙게 동안만요 되는 줄 알았어 저대도 잠못 저보다 냐와 제와 이나데 동아들의 용거에디 셔도되는다 저벌레 줄데서 저는 렌데 시샤 돈에서 시오 렌데를 예절래 줘 어디를 내 독자 제조 말 독자 잡아야나 디데디데 용거를 다 왔어 시나 오버잠 말다 데 레주데스 데텐데 요르스데 켈레나 마나 텐데 좀 먼저 용대보다 돼 남자주는 메데 나로 통되고 맞아
게실로 코난 좋아 디테레샤 찍 단당아 저기 단다 덴드레기 지 컴 덴드 망부지 여바딩아 좀 오네 컴지 여레베 야메나가 저기 냐와 드레기 미게베 레 제바딜랑아 저 찹체중 시샤 제정아 저기 지 차나 추동아 저기 괴샤바지레 베슬라이
알레 차나 좀 말이다 오늘도 배자 시장 오늘도 열었어 다던데 다 여자들 소소게 다 영에 미상만 아주 통 미크 통과 말이 이나 소소다 디데 니발때 되게 심제 되게 동화되는 연구를 대체반에 동화되는 연구를 했어 딱 고저게 먼저 단나도 전화로래는 코랑 공스 용도 그래서 저는 먼저 미직 지라 그 강아 시고도 세바이나 딱 배가 되더네 먼저 연구만 배 용도 사자들 또 바이나 대치도 나 칼라데서나 그 조금이도 써라 가시 먼저 예시면 돼 칼라데서나 가래서 그런 엘레지레도 대세서나 만 내가 도나는 떠나다 견다로도 이제 갔으네요 소선도 소선 내고 뭐 되잖아 그저 나대고 그때는 아주 연구를 더 했어 용조요 똑바로 봐서 왔단 말이야 무슨 연구를 그런
So Geshe said definitely these different realms are dependent on the degree of non-virtuous action that one has committed. The more non-virtuous action they have committed, the different realm they will actually manifest into, even if they have done an action that deems them to go to the hell realm, but the degree or the severity of the non-virtuous action that they have committed, they go to different realms, such as the lowest realm, which is known as the Avicii, where it is said that the suffering is unbearable. In those realms, when someone has committed the most heinous crime or the most heinous non-virtuous actions are there. So it depends on those actions where one one is born in different realm, or sort of like a different realm in the hell. But then at the same time, Geshe said that more than thinking it to rather thinking it to be a more abstract concept, the beings that undergo these kind of suffering are actually experiencing all those suffering in that very moment. And then it may not be something that we can comprehend. Like for example, we have like we have some people who undergo such great degree of stress and anxiety. But then to us, we feel like, why is that person going through such stress and anxiety? And then we cannot comprehend the idea of someone suffering that much. And then similarly, we have this another example Geshe given is of the allergy. We feel that just because we're not allergic to certain food, we tend to ask this question, but what's wrong with this food? I eat it. It doesn't do anything to me. Why should it cause them suffering? So that's the same concept here. We might not be able to comprehend it, rather trying to think it in a more abstract concept, but it is something that is apparent and concrete that that sentient being is actually suffering in that degree. And then that level of suffering is definitely dependent on the severity of the non-virtuous action that one has committed.
Thank you, Geshe.
Are we taking more questions, Geshe, or we move
Okay.
forward?
One question more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone?
If there's no question, then we start dedication prayer.
Yes, Geshe. I'll share my screen. Please join me for dedication prayers. May all beings everywhere plagued by suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or even fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever disease there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Thank you everyone for joining on Sunday afternoon. Thank you, Geshe, for the teachings, such precious teachings. Thank you, Tenzin Lakpala, for being our translator. Thank you, Sangha members, for joining. And thank you, this Mille Jamsa Center, for these precious teachings to be held, and everyone in the background. Next session is on which date, Geshe? We will have 12th session on?
Yes, 6th August.
6th October.
October 6th.
Oh, yes, same time. See you all. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.